Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley.
I'm Brian.
If you thought Nintendo had already announced its full 2018 lineup of games, and who could blame you? It is July. It's now the back half of the year, and their E3 was entirely focused on the games coming out this year. Turns out you'd be wrong.
Yeah, the company's outgoing president says that Nintendo still hasn't revealed all the games that it's got coming out this year for the Switch.
Yeah, Tatsumi Kimishima made these comments on his last ever meeting with shareholders who are not happy with Nintendo these days.
No, the company's stock price, it's in trouble. It's continued to decline after E3, and it looks like stockholders are worried about Nintendo's ability to maintain the sales momentum of the Switch.
Yeah, it was on a mostly upwards trajectory for the past 2 years, but Nintendo stock's been in kind of a slump lately. It dropped by more than 17% since E3 just a few weeks ago, and shares have been down about 34% since March. So actually, this drop escalated after E3. Still higher than it was pre-Switch, but 34%, that's a significant loss.
Yeah, even though the Switch sold nearly 18 million units in its first year, it set all kinds of records, but there are some signs out there that its momentum is starting to slow down.
So, what's going on? I mean, Nintendo busted out some really big guns recently. At E3, they announced Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that's releasing in December. Before that, Nintendo said Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee is gonna come out in November for the Switch, both big mass market pleasers.
Yeah, people were excited. Those are huge brands for Nintendo, but not enough for investors who seem to say, is that it? Is that all you got?
Come on, what else you got?
We want more. They're like gamers.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe they got spoiled by last year. I mean, Nintendo did release 2 of their all-time greats, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey. They both reviewed amazing. They both sold amazing. And those 2 games alongside their support lineup like Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and Splatoon 2 all helped get the Switch off to a really strong start.
Yeah, it was a historic first-year lineup, I think. And this year Nintendo's supporting Pokemon Let's Go and Super Smash Bros. With a different range of games like Super Mario Party and Octopath Traveler. They've also got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Overcooked 2. There's some solid potential there, especially with Super Mario Party.
Oh, it's gonna ruin so many friends.
Yeah, and it's gonna fit well, I think, with the Switch's design and what they want it to do. But admittedly, that's a smaller lineup than last year's support games.
Yeah, well, as far as investors are concerned, the lineup combined with, and this is also very, very important, slower than expected Switch sales, the console could be cooling off sooner than expected, and they're kind of hedging their bets against it now.
Yeah, and Nintendo is now concerned because Kimishima tried to assure investors they still have not revealed their full lineup for this year, which again, it's getting kind of late in the year.
You think you'd want to start talking about that. Kimishima is stepping down soon. He's going to be replaced by new president Shuntaro Furukawa, who's been at Nintendo since 1994, previously served on the board of the Pokemon Company. And should note as well, Kimishima was always intended to be a short-term head of the company after former president Satoru Iwata died in 2015, so this is expected. It's not a crazy surprise. I think he's been doing really well, but this was intended as a temporary measure, and a new guy is on his way in.
Yeah, but before he leaves the company, Kimishima was grilled by investors recently about the future of the Switch and what the company is doing to maintain its sales momentum. It's definitely a what have you done for us lately situation.
Right, it's like, yeah, sure, you had an amazing launch.
Now
the
what?
Stocks were at an all-time high, but now what you gonna do?
Yeah, and that's basically when he said they aren't done announcing new games, they've still got more, he's reaching around in his pockets, he's looking for stuff.
Well, according to a transcript of the investor meeting, Nintendo's gonna reveal more about its full 2018 lineup at the appropriate time, so not exactly committal there. It will apparently also include games that are gonna launch during the holiday season.
Yeah, that's historically the biggest time of the year in the video game industry. It's when companies release a lot of their big name games to attract holiday shoppers.
Right, Kimishima also defended the current announced lineup for Switch, calling it powerful, but he said that Nintendo wants to maintain the Switch's sales performance through the holidays, which, again, big time for, well, consoles in general, and Nintendo being family-oriented, likes to be in all the gift guides. Holidays really, really, really extra important to them.
Yeah, and they'll need that because they have some big plans for the Switch this year, sales-wise. Earlier this year, they predicted that they will sell 20 million more Switches during this fiscal year, which would make for a total of nearly 40 million Switches sold by the end of March of next year.
That's ambitious. That is more than they did in their launch fiscal.
Right.
So
they did have supply issues back then, but yeah, it's still a lot more.
That's true, yeah. But to do all that, to sell another 20 million consoles, they're gonna need more games because, well, like we said, Switch launched with a very impressive lineup, and while the new Super Smash Bros. And the Pokemon games are big deals, clearly investors feel like they need something more.
But what could that be? Nintendo did announce they're working on Metroid Prime 4, but that was at E3 last year. I'm excited, but we didn't hear a bit about it at this year's E3. Turns out there's a reason for that. They said it's not even close to being ready, so that's out.
All right, there is another big franchise that I will not stop harping on until I get it, and that's Animal Crossing. Yes!
Yeah, Nintendo revisited the franchise last fall when it released Animal Crossing Pocket Camp for mobile. It's possible they could have been secretly working on a Switch game this whole time.
That's what I like to think.
Yeah, you would think they would mention that at E3 though.
Well, yeah, so as much as I would like it and as much as I'm gonna keep begging for it, it does seem unlikely. After E3, Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aimé said there was strong performance of Pocket Camp, and that indicated a lot of interest in some future franchise entry at some point. But unless he was trolling us, it sounds like that's a long way off.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're looking at here as far as additional games.
We don't know yet. We'll just have to wait, see what they end up announcing. It's also possible that Kimishima was referring to other less high profile games, maybe not the first party IP that have been yet to be announced for this year. He didn't elaborate when he talked to investors.
Yeah, so maybe we're looking at a lot of indie, AA, ports, that kind of thing that's going to be coming to sort of round out the lineup as opposed to a big surprise Nintendo title.
Right.
I mean, recently the indie publisher Devolver Digital did say that it has more than a dozen releases for the Switch coming this year, so there's a little bit of support there.
Yep.
I mean, they do specialize in indie titles, but I don't know, maybe some other publishers have stuff in the pipeline that we don't know about as well.
Yeah, and speaking of investors, this drop in stock price, it could mean that shareholders aren't happy with Nintendo's philosophy with the Switch, which seems to be heavy focus on first-party games and smaller indie titles.
So basically, have any of you investors been familiar with Nintendo? Because that's kind of their MO.
Did they know what company they were investing in?
They've always been a first-party machine. I mean, look, Nintendo has been welcoming some multi-platform ports to the Switch. Doom, Wolfenstein 2, most recently Fortnite. But the reality is, if you want a big multi-platform game, you're probably gonna go get it somewhere else unless there is something just really, really compelling about the idea of being able to take it on the go, because the Switch hardware doesn't hold a candle to dedicated home consoles or PCs in terms of raw power.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a few gens now. Graphics have never really been Nintendo's strong suit.
Wasn't the Wii, it didn't even do HD?
No.
Yeah.
It was blurry.
Yeah, everyone else is like, we got the 720p, and they're like, 480 suits us just fine.
Right, but they do make the most of what they got. Their first-party games always look amazing. That's always where they really shine on Nintendo hardware, but sometimes that's not enough for third-party games when you can get a better experience with them elsewhere, and that means those games, multi-plats and all, they don't really drive Switch hardware sales.
No, they're there, so if you've already bought a Switch for a first-party game, there's something else you can get as well. But it's true that they are support, not drivers, usually. As for why investors seem to be a little down on Nintendo, analyst Michael Pachter did weigh in with his thoughts, saying he thinks Nintendo made a mistake by setting its hardware goals too high over the next year.
Yeah, he said Nintendo's made a strategic error in telling investors that they intend to sell 20 million Switches this year. Instead, Pachter said that the Switch is trending to sell much, much less, around 8 to 10 million in that time frame.
That's a pretty big discrepancy. Kimishima made the ambitious prediction for 20 million in January this year, telling investors they would sell that many in fiscal year 2018, which runs through the end of next March.
At that time, he said the Switch's performance exceeded expectations, and Nintendo hopes to drive this with more games that enable new ways of playing.
And they are kind of doing that. Like Super Mario Party is going to be sort of weird. I don't know if you saw E3 where you'll be able to put multiple Switches together and that sort of creates and builds out the board. But so they are sort of delivering the new ways to play, but maybe that's not quite delivering the sales as of yet. Maybe the goal was a little ambitious.
Yeah, Pachter said that Nintendo is counting on one franchise in particular to move a lot of Switches Pokemon.
Big surprise, it will. He said they think they're going to get a big boost from Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. They might. There's several 100 million people who play Pokemon Go who don't own a Switch, so maybe you get those people to buy a Switch, and maybe that's the secret sauce. I mean, doing the math here, right? Last time I checked, Pokemon Go downloads were over 750 million worldwide, so that's like 730-ish million who may not own a Switch.
That's a big ask though, because that was free. The Switch is not free at all.
That's absolutely true, but it also got a lot of people into Pokemon and re-energized, and they're hoping they're energized enough to drop 300 buckaroos on a console.
Pachter said that right now investors are starting to think, oh my God, they're not gonna hit their hardware numbers, and then that trickles down to everything else. That means they're not gonna hit their software goals, which ultimately means lower than expected earnings, which means that their stock price is gonna drop, which is what we're seeing.
Pachter did say all that can change though if Switch sales start to go back up, and they're gonna need to go up a lot, it seems like. He said there are two ways to do that. One, have a game that people wanna buy, like they're hoping with Pokemon Let's Go, or cut the price of the console. That also works pretty well, usually.
He said if we get to November and the Switch hasn't cut its price or seen a sales boost, that stock's gonna stay down.
I mean, Nintendo is in a pretty good spot, so we'll see what happens. As of right now, it looks like the crazy momentum may be cooling off a little bit. Of course, games are everything, so if Nintendo is unveiling some new stuff, or if the Pokemon and Smash sales numbers end up moving a lot more consoles by themselves, this could just be a blip on Nintendo's radar, and they're one of the only companies that keeps cash in the bank, so it's not like they're in danger of closing up shop anytime soon. They are in a place where they can weather this kind of storm. Drizzle, maybe it's a drizzle.
It's also priced as like a growth stock. Like if you're a stock nerd, the Switch has been going crazy, their stock has been peaking, so it seems like investors are expecting a certain level of growth, and if the Switch doesn't deliver that, then it's gonna cool off, which might be what we're seeing.
You know what's gonna get them tons of hardware sales? It's gonna just spike that stock through the roof?
Tell me.
Mother 3.
Yes. Yes.
All right, what games do you guys think Nintendo should announce this year? Any ideas? Let us know in the comments.
And for all your Nintendo news, be sure to like this video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the Know.
Or Pikmin.
Pikmin.
I will take a Pikmin game. I'll take Pikmin. If you want that to be your, like a little AA game, throw me the Pikmin. Show me the Pikmin. You know what, just bring the Wii U port. They're porting everything else. We got Captain Toad, we already got Mario Kart. Let's get some of that Pikmin up in there.
That is what